GoFundMe, lazy frauditors, or lazy summer days? Our own GoFundMe campaign won the day again out of sheer spite and torture, despite our great and embarrassing breakdown yesterday, as yet again our devoted followers did what no one else could do, throw some money at us to keep going. None of this really makes any sense. It's past the first of the month. Government checks are in for those who get them. I know it's a traditionally slow time online, as it's the middle of summer and people took time off due to the July 4th holiday, but still, throwing $5 to help a chili Decastro or DirectD out wouldn't be too much of a burden. The trouble, I guess, is that there's nothing compelling going on. Out of the big names, Sean Paul Long Island Audits Riaz doesn't need the money at this point. He stages an arrest every time he wants to sue for go-away money. He obviously wouldn't run a GoFundMe if he needed the money, as everything he does seems to be as planned as a WWE main event. His current campaigns seem to be afterthought, as, for example, he had already purchased the billboard truck when he ran the GoFundMe for it. That GoFundMe campaign only sought $20,000 when the thing cost over $150,000. Donations are not going to help him buy anything or fight anything. They're just a rich man getting richer and recouping the gas money and storage of the damn thing at this point. Jose Chile Decastro might honestly need the money. But how do you raise money when your only asset, your personality, is locked behind bars in a Nevada jail? His cult of followers is scattered to the wind right now, and all his incomplete fundraisers have had their deadlines come and go with no updates from the people running them for him. He's got an endgame, though, as we've got around 20-ish days until he's out of jail. Then, about 3 weeks after that, he goes on trial again for similar charges and faces another real possibility of going back to jail. He'll have 3 weeks to hype his followers and pay some real attention to his campaigns. Expect a total barrage of round-the-clock fundraising, as his clock is literally ticking. Out of anyone, expect the market to be sparked around Decastro, as he'll be out of jail and desperate to make some money before going back in. The rest? Hopefully Decastro's pending return will spark some interest in doing something to promote their campaigns. There is sheer apathy at this point by people who aren't putting anything back into the investment to at least try to raise money they say they need. Say what you want about me, monotone voice, should get a real job, isn't compelling enough to listen to live, but every day I'm making $10. For that $10, you get 3 to 5 articles a day and a flashback article. It may mean I'm making $1 an hour off of actual work, but I'm earning it by trying to do something other than sitting on my back and waiting for the money to come in. As always, if you'd like to keep us reporting news stories every day, we do have a GoFundMe of our own located on the screen below. All proceeds go to keeping the lights on, eating, and writing news stories to feature here and at ReallyCoolSite.org. Decastro versus the United States Supreme Court. Again. In the stupidity that was Friday and Jose Chile Decastro's failing to answer a motion for summary judgment in his lawsuit against the Las Vegas Metro Police Force, we forgot to look at his latest rant about the Supreme Court. Decastro has used the Supreme Court as a go-to rant for the past year or so, falling into the evils of the Supreme Court when he didn't have anything else to talk about. His July 4th, 2024 address to the public was just another example of this. In his latest speech, he was trying to say that now that the Supreme Court has ruled that presidents have near total immunity, their influence on shaping the court system should end within a few years after they were no longer president. Under Decastro's newest proposal, members of the Supreme Court would be elected to serve 8-year terms and would be limited to serving 2 terms for a total of 16 years. They would also be able to be impeached for not keeping campaign promises or voting in ways that weren't reflective of the president who appointed them. New to the standard speech this time was his focus on Generation Z and the argument that Supreme Court justices should not be serving on the court if they were appointed before a member of Generation Z was born, as that was giving the presidents from 30 years ago too much power. Decastro tried to make the argument that Clarence Thomas was appointed in 1991 by George Herbert Walker Bush. Because Bush's presidency ended before members of Generation Z were born, so should Bush's political ideals as reflected in judgments by Thomas. Under this argument, People are static, and ideas don't change over time. Because Thomas, who has become one of the most conservative justices in the history of the court, was appointed so long ago, he serves no value, as ideas will always be static and will always reflect those of George H.W. Bush. It's an interesting idea, to say the least, as Decastro, a member of Generation X, was born during the presidency of Gerald Ford. Ford was never voted into office. He was appointed as a replacement for Spiro Agnew, who retired in 1973. He became president in 1974 after Richard Nixon resigned, making him the only person in history to become both vice president and president without being voted into office. Decastro's logic could say that since Decastro was born during Ford, an appointed president, his ideology began and ended with Ford. Decastro's viewpoint is therefore stuck in 1974, and therefore Decastro should not be allowed to vote, run for office, or be appointed to government roles, as his ideology reflects President Ford. In Decastro's logic, Ford's influence should have ended within 16 years of his departure from the presidency. Doing some quick calculations of Decastro's expiration year, it was 1992, when Decastro would have turned 18. His political influence would have ended the year he was eligible to vote. I'm somehow good with that. I mean, it would also disqualify me from running for office or wielding political influence, but when did that ever interest me? But then again, if that applies to everyone, those who are born in the years of George W. Bush's presidency, 2000 to 2008, will lose political relevance this year. Those born during Obama's presidency, 2008 to 2016, are still politically relevant until 2032. Those born during Trump's presidency, 2016 to 2020, will be relevant until 2034, and those born during Biden's presidency will be relevant until 2038. If Trump wins the presidency this year, it'll get complicated, as those born in his first term will get a bump until 2042, giving an extraordinary expansion to their political relevancy to the ripe old maximum age of 26. Decastro logic also means that anyone between the age range of 1 to 16 years of age are politically relevant. Those are our leaders, and they should be looked to in order to secure our future, as ideology never changes, and people should be tied to the president who was in power the year they were born. 1 to 16-year-olds running the world couldn't be more worse than the system we have right now. Right, folks? Maybe Decastro, for once in his life, has a point. Or I needed to fill 2 pages to make a quota. In either case, we all win. Decastro can't serve, and the rest of us retire from politics, political thought, and political relevance after the maximum age of 26. Sounds like a winner to me. USA! 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 Flashback July 7, 2023. DMA, AFA continue First Amendment rampage. In a now privated video, Christopher Denver Metro Audits Cordova and Josh Accountability for All Abrams led a group of auditors, including DMA's girlfriend, Teresa Sweet Tea Neal, to the famous Danbury, Connecticut library, where they got into an altercation with the security guard and police were called. DMA's live stream of the situation started as police were already on scene and had de-escalated the situation, separating the auditors from the security guard and explaining that even though the security officer had asked them to leave, it was their rights to film in a public place and the auditors would not be trespassed. AFA shook hands with the officers at the scene and commended the officers for their work in standing up for the rights of every American to film in public, before gathering sweet tea and another auditor and leaving the building. DMA and Auditor Leroy the Truth stuck around as DMA stated it was his policy not to leave before the police did. As DMA was waiting for the police to leave, Leroy claimed that he had heard the officers telling the security guard that he did a good job, encouraging DMA to confront the security guard and the officers. The officers and security guards explained it was the security guard telling them that they had done a good job before again de-escalating the situation. DMA solicited and received an apology from the security guard for running into him. The YouTuber accepted the apology and later shook the security guard's hand on the way out of the building, yet still accused the man of kicking his tripod with his knee when he arrived on the scene and DMA was blocking a stairway. The Danbury Library is infamous in the First Amendment auditing community due to a famous incident involving Sean Paul Long Island Audit RIAs last year. DMA told his viewers that the group of auditors had planned the audit of the library, and since the library again failed, he would personally return to audit the library again. DMA and Leroy stuck around until close before being escorted to their car by AMA and ending the live stream. Flashback July 7, 2023. Disheveled Decastro live streams about dogs. 1 year ago today, an increasingly erratic and paranoid Jose Chili Decastro's Thursday night live stream was overshadowed by fan concerns about his appearance as he displayed fully constricted pupils, white lips, and an apparent light pink bruising around his nose and above his upper lip. The 48-year-old homeless YouTuber said he had rushed back to his office from doing a workout and seemed to be rushed and out of breath at the start of his live stream, though quickly bounced back in order to perform an extended rant about YouTube and YouTube's decision not to monetize his videos that feature anti-police views. Decastro argued that his viewers use the same products from advertisers as anyone else and deserve to be exposed to commercials as non-cop watching channels. Continuing, he threatened to move his YouTube operation to Patreon should YouTube remove his channel. Turning to his main focus of the evening, Decastro displayed what he claimed to be ad-worthy footage of an incident in Lorain, Ohio, where a police officer shot a family dog that was running in the street. Decastro slowed the footage down and featured the graphic shooting of the animal while making anti-police statements. The YouTuber encouraged his followers to take action and go to their city council meetings to demand laws preventing police from shooting dogs, claiming that dogs are no danger to police. While members of his chat claim that dogs are harmless and have never hurt a police officer, Decastro suggested that officers use chairs to barricade themselves from animals while yelling for help from the animal's owner, instead of having a negative interaction with the animal. Decastro finished his live stream by featuring an extended commercial for his indestructible trifold and a video from Carolina and Fort Worth. GoFundMe, a new victor on Sunday? Ah, glorious GoFundMe, another rant about the secret conspiracies that run my world, and another day of victory as... Wait, I didn't win? What? How could this be? Someone actually got a donation? That can't be. Go through the list again, double check. Maybe this was one of those bogus, wasn't here for 3 days until it pops up in a random refresh entry. I mean, come on, we haven't had life anywhere else for so long Well, honk my hooter and call me a cab. There was a $20 donation to Jose Chili Decastro's lawyer fund only. All donations go to lawyer fund. But how can that be? That's the fund that he features on at the end of every Jailhouse Rock video. He never gives out the URL, of course, but that's the one that's on the screen for a few minutes. But nobody ever goes to that fund. They don't care. They've given up on the house that is Decastro and have done the mid-2020s thing and taken up apathy and the grace of knowing sometime it's better not to help someone like Decastro because he'll have oodles of money coming from his sugar daddies as soon as he shows off the major cool new moves he learned in the joint. Roy. Maybe it was Roy. Remember Roy? Decastro's first cellmate as he was in jail quarantine for the first couple of days. The large black man who would sit on the toilet and poop as Decastro hummed loudly, sticking his fingers in his ears, and thought about freedom. USA! 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 Plop. Roy was never mentioned again after the plop, so maybe he's out on the streets. putting together his last $20 in order to remember the brief love that they shared in the Clark County Detention Center. 2 men, 1 toilet, and the times they had together. Or maybe, just maybe, somebody saw the advertisement for the GoFundMe, figured out how to do a GoFundMe search, found the campaign, and gave Decastro a $20 tip for being a big boy now. But he still beat us! I mean, grand conspiracy aside, our pride is lost now. We're spiraling. We need to up our game, make the newscasts even more insane, and then just maybe, Rose will stop staring at us like we're her long-lost Spice Girls tour jacket and not give in to her base instincts to sell us on the open market for a profit before we spiral into the valueless times of our mid-50s. And the man in Atlanta's mom will still not love him, but his vacuum mama, Ms. Desiree Hoover, will always have open arms and a cold, hard entryway for his hopes and dreams. Oh no, Jim, recover gracefully. Go back into the boring newsman voice and... The 5-hour energy is talking now! Just a reminder, if you'd like to keep us reporting news stories every day, we do have a GoFundMe of our own listed below. A grand conspiracy keeps us writing this article every day, and you too can participate in it. All proceeds go to keeping the lights on, eating, and writing news stories to feature here and on ReallyCoolSite.org. That's ReallyCoolSite.org. Decastro poops on the pooper. Jose Chile Decastro's July 7, 2024 broadcast from the Clark County Detention Center focused on his pending appeal hearing for his conviction of obstructing an officer and interfering in a traffic stop, and, of course, how he learned to poop on a pooper while in jail. Decastro's strange obsession with bathroom talk took over the latter part of the broadcast as he announced that he has learned to defecate in front of others and often enjoys saying hello to his fellow prisoner as he poops on the pooper while sharing his views on the world. Previously, Decastro explained when in public he would get pee-shy around others. In at least one case, he was out at a public event in a line for a urinal. When it came time for him to turn to expose himself to the urinal and urinate, he couldn't. He said he would stand there and nothing would happen, so he'd re-zip and leave, hopefully washing his hands, and come back at a time when there weren't so many people around to watch him manipulate himself into urinating. The YouTuber stated that while in prison there's no chance to be pee-shy, as the guards told you when it was time to use the bathroom. If you didn't comply and you didn't poop in the pooper and pee in the peer, you'd cause yourself all sorts of problems. So Decastro claimed that he's learned to poop in front of people, often sharing a bench with up to 2 other men as they defecate in the jail bathroom, experiencing freedom in their own unique ways. Decastro's other subjects of the night were his upcoming release and his pending appeal on Wednesday. The YouTuber seemed overjoyed that he would be in court again, this time with an ironclad appeal, as none of his previous statements that he got arrested on purpose for a payout or that he intended to obstruct an officer would ever be used in court against him. Briefly doubting himself, Decastro said that even if he lost the appeal, he'd then appeal to the Nevada State Supreme Court to prove that the system was unjust and that the case law says exactly what he thinks it says, that he's an innocent man, and surely the state Supreme Court had to see that. Plus, he claimed to be set for release by July 22nd, 23rd, or 24th, and would be out on the streets of Las Vegas in the next 2 weeks anyway. Focusing on the future, Decastro has previously stated that he would start filing lawsuits against corrupt Justice of the Peace Ann Zimmerman and the court system as soon as he tasted freedom. Decastro's appeal is set for Wednesday, July 10th, 2024. "1A and Friends Court Updates." Several famous members of the 1A auditing community and those tangentially associated with the community have court this week. Auditor Craig Hendry's legal troubles top our updates this week, as 2 of his ongoing criminal cases from Greene County, Indiana, had hearings last week. On Tuesday, July 2nd, 2024, he had a hearing on charges of resisting law enforcement, obstruction, and unlawful encroachment from a March 14, 2024 incident with a police officer. In that incident, he shined a flashlight at the officer and then was found to be 23 feet away from that officer when he asked Hendry to step back 25 feet. Hendry had gotten in his face and said he was exactly 25 feet and dared the officer to measure. The officer measured at 23 feet and Hendry was charged. In that case, the judge took Hendry's motion for summary judgment as a request to dismiss the case. She gave both sides 30 days to submit briefs to the court. Then she would take the briefs under advisement. The judge also set a pretrial conference for September 4th, 2024. That same court handled Hendry's hearing on the second case in Greene County, which is tried at the same time as the above case. In that case, Hendry is accused of making a false complaint against a law enforcement officer, which stems from an incident at a city council meeting where Hendry claimed police entered his house with a warrant when he wasn't home and otherwise acted illegally. A hearing was also scheduled for July 2nd, 2024 for that one to be held after the previous hearing, but was then rescheduled to September 4th, 2024. Aidan Turtleboy Kearney has 2 court appearances this week, both on July 11th, 2024. Kearney is due in court for a pretrial hearing in Dedham, Massachusetts at 9 a.m. on July 11th for charges of violating an abuse prevention order against ex-girlfriend Lindsay Gaetini. It's a misdemeanor charge that will carry over 100 days of incarceration if he is found guilty. His next hearing for felony witness intimidation, felony conspiracy, and misdemeanor picketing will be heard also in Dedham, Massachusetts on July 11, 2024 at 2 p.m. Eastern. Neither case is expected to be publicly televised. Masshole Troll Mafia leader Kate Peter is also expected in Dedham today for charges of violation of a harassment protection order. The charges carry a punishment of under 100 days incarceration. The hearing is listed as an arraignment session for discovery, compliance, and jury election. It is not expected to be televised. Peter's next pretrial hearing for felony witness intimidation charges is also in Dedham on July 30th, 2024 at 8:30 a.m. Finally, Jose Chile Decastro set to be in Las Vegas for his appeals hearing on Wednesday, July 10th, 2024, and that is his appeal of his conviction on interference in a traffic stop and obstructing an officer. The hearing is expected to be carried live on our Nevada Judge's YouTube channel. Future Jim here, updating a tidbit from our last story. Masshole Troll Mafia leader Kate Peters' hearing for ongoing charges of felony witness intimidation was indeed held today. The court listing says her motion for funding for an investigator was allowed. The next hearing in the case was also scheduled for August 26, 2024. Decastro YouTube fan deletes content. Fans of the Joel MLM YouTube channel were in for a shock as the wannabe disciple of Jose Chile Decastro posted an update that everyone failed to view on Saturday, then privated all content on his channel on Sunday. Joel MLM had become the subject of many a YouTube reaction video last week when he flipped off a state trooper and then was pulled over for having tinted taillights and using an improper hand signal. The wannabe Decastro admitted to the trooper that he wasn't using hand signals, but was instead flipping the officer off as he stuck his arm out of the window. He later used the same gesture to alert the officer that he had found his updated insurance information. While the trooper went to write up the ticket, Joel MLM pulled out a copy of Jose Chile Decastro's indestructible trifold and claimed that the trooper was a tyrant. He also pulled up his shirt to show his flabby stomach and that he wasn't armed. He then went into a long rant that his stop was retaliatory as the trooper saw that he was being flipped off and there was no law against having tinted taillights. He promised that he'd beat the charges in court. When the officer returned, the YouTuber was handed copies of the law, his ticket, along with a news article that explained the law. The trooper also reminded Joel MLM to sign his registration, which could be another $150 fine should he fail to do so in the future. As the officer returned to his car, Joel MLM screamed at him that he wanted his name and badge number. The officer didn't hear his demand over the noise of the highway and left the scene as the YouTuber continued his thoughts on conspiracy and corruption in the police department. The video went viral in the 1A reaction community over the past week with multiple reaction videos to the brashness and stupidity of the YouTuber. This apparently resulted in another video explaining his actions and updating his situation that was removed before anyone could do a reaction video of it, which is probably for the best due to the mocking he continues to receive as his original video continues to circulate. We'll continue to monitor his channel and report if and when he releases a new update. Flashback July 9th, 2023. Direct D accuses state of bias. Wanted fugitive Christopher Direct D. Ruff livestreamed from a new location on Saturday in order to interview a man named Derek Nelson, who claimed that he could prove the state of Arizona was actively disqualifying good people from being hired in the police force and police-related jobs in the state government. Appearing dirty and disheveled and sitting outside of an apparently dilapidated trailer, Ruff interviewed Nelson about these accusations, stating that as a good person himself, Ruff would be disqualified from working for the state. Nelson's story began with Nelson seeing an online advertisement for a safety intelligence analyst position for the Arizona Department of Public Safety. After an application led to a series of tests, Nelson claims he was offered the job pending passing a polygraph test. On the day of the polygraph examination, Nelson arrived drinking a coffee, and the polygraph administrator, identified as Dan Caputo, berated him for drinking coffee before the examination. Coffee is listed as a stimulant and is normally listed as a prohibited substance for consumption before taking a polygraph test, as it can impact the body's reactions to the polygraph. Nelson also accused Caputo of being a pervert, as the vast majority of questions Nelson was allegedly asked centered around Nelson's sex life and around questions pertaining to sexual activities and interactions with minors. Nelson became upset at repeated questions surrounding sexual touching of a sleeping partner and open-mouth kissing of a minor. As the test concluded, Nelson claimed that Caputo yelled at him and made a snide comment to take his coffee with him as he left the room. This interaction, according to Nelson, led to his diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder. Nelson then described Caputo as a child molester and pedophile, and that complaints about Caputo's alleged behavior were ignored as he reported Caputo individually to his direct superior, Police Internal Affairs, and the Director of Arizona's Public Safety Division. Ruff, complaining that his limited attention span was making it hard to focus, wrapped up the interview in a little over an hour and proclaimed that it was proof that good people were being prevented from working for the state of Arizona. Christopher Direct D. Ruff currently has a warrant for his arrest in Maricopa County, Arizona, after skipping a court hearing on Thursday. GoFundMe, Decastro wins again. Despite the best efforts by the conspiracy to keep me writing this article, Jose Chile Decastro's Legal Aid Fund Donation Fund Help People Fund took the GoFundMe win for Monday. The fund saw $25 in donations come in late in the day, beating out a donation of $20 to our own ongoing expenses fund and establishing a string of wins for Decastro's ongoing efforts to raise money for his legal defense in his criminal cases and for lawyers to handle his ongoing civil litigation. Decastro's next court hearing, his appeal of his recent conviction for interference in a traffic stop and obstruction of an officer, will be held on July 10, 2024. Interest in Decastro aside, it's time for our complete and necessary hijacking of this column in order to announce changes going forward with this channel and how we will handle our nightly newscasts. As most of our regular listeners know, we recently transitioned from a combination of live and pre-recorded segments for the nightly newscast to an entirely pre-recorded broadcast. While airing live on our platform and featuring members of the cast in the side chat for the premieres, the change has brought about a lot of questions from fans and concerns that were rightfully stated. In order to address those questions, the decision was made to release the newscast as a standalone video file each day to our YouTube channel. Links will be made available to our X and Facebook accounts, and then we will have a live watch party each day for the community to have an interactive experience with the cast to talk about the subjects covered in the newscast while watching said newscast. The nightly newscast is also reclaiming the original title of our newspaper and will be now known as Really Cool News Presents the Auditing Insanity Newscast. or just Auditing Insanity. The name reflects our shift in attitude from a straight newscast to something a little lighter, more consumer-friendly, and a little more insane. Individual videos of the articles featured in the broadcast will be released in the hours that follow the broadcast for anyone who wants to avoid our nonsense and just get straight to the news. Also changing is our show lineup. Sundays at 8:55 a.m. Eastern, we will be having a live weekly review watch party. That's followed at 9 a.m. on Sundays with the Week in Review video launch. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, we will have our live Drunk Girl Theater. Every day at 6:25 Eastern, we will be starting our live Auditing Insanity newscast watch party. This is followed at 6:30 p.m. Eastern every night by our Auditing Insanity newscast video release. 8 p.m. Tuesdays will see us do our live Lip Hoop Scoop Shoot show, featuring whomever we round up for our exclusive talk show about France and French things and other insane things that we'll probably forget about by the time we get on air. Thursdays and Saturdays round out our live schedule with all-star panels at 8 p.m. Eastern. Remember, that's also 7 p.m. where it counts, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. on the West Coast. We do have a GoFundMe of our own. All proceeds go to keeping the lights on, eating, and writing new stories to feature here and on ReallyCoolSite.org. Reed defense team demands charges dropped. In a Monday news dump targeting TMZ and other pro-Karen Reed news outlets, and having nothing to do with attorney Alan Jackson's name out in the news for his alleged inappropriate behavior with client Karen Reed, Reed's defense filed a new motion to prevent two of her criminal charges from being retried. The news made headlines on both TMZ and Fox News as Jackson claimed to have new evidence that the jurors were unanimous in clearing Reed of two of the charges in the case, based on information provided by either three jurors directly or from a friend of the juror in the case who claimed to have access to a group chat with members of the jury. Jackson filed his motion to dismiss Count 1, second-degree murder, and Count 3, leaving the scene of a personal injury or death, based on the information that he claims the jury was unanimous in verdicts of not guilty for the charges. Jackson claimed that while the jury was leaning towards a conviction in Count 2, vehicular manslaughter, because the jurors were reportedly unanimous in finding that his client was innocent of the two other charges, trying her again for those charges would be double jeopardy. The trial resulted in a hung jury last week as jurors claimed that they were fundamentally at odds with each other and coming to a unanimous decision in the case. Jackson is essentially asking the court to put aside two of the charges because three of the jury members supposedly came forward to the defense to say that the entire jury shared their beliefs that Reed was not guilty of counts 1 and 3. Jackson did not provide evidence or affidavits from the jury members in his filing, but asked the court to allow him to investigate the jury's internal deliberations in support of his motion. The prosecution has yet to respond to Jackson's motion. Upon filing with the court, the defense immediately shared that filing with TMZ, Fox News, and other pro-Karen Reed news outlets. This included Larry the DUI guy, Foreman, who immediately blitzed headlines and tweets with "not guilty," despite there being no verdict in the case, as, of course, the case resulted in a hung jury. The request may be delayed if granted, as Judge Beverly Cannoni, who handled the trial, ordered on Monday the names of the jurors in the case impounded for 10 days. Her ruling indicated that she was protecting the jurors from possible danger as people associated with the case have been charged with intimidation. While not naming him, the judge's order was directly squared at Aidan Turtleboy Kearney, who has been charged with multiple counts of conspiracy to intimidate, witness intimidation, and picketing. Kearney had promised that he would taint the jury pool before the trial and made what some would consider threats that he would expose the jury's identities if the jury returned a guilty verdict. In response to the judge's order, DUI guy Foreman released an indignant statement on Twitter claiming that threats from members of the Albert and McCabe families may be the reasoning behind her decision. No mention was made of Kearney. In more Reed-related news, Massachusetts State Trooper Michael Proctor, the lead investigator in the case, was suspended without pay while an internal affairs investigation into his inappropriate comments in text messages during the Reed case continues. Proctor could face charges following the investigation that could be heard by a state police trial board if warranted. Me files Decastro response. Attorney Michael Me barely met the filing deadline extension on Monday that was granted for Jose Chile Decastro's response to a motion by the Las Vegas Metro Police Department for a summary judgment in Decastro's lawsuit against the organization. The response came in later than expected and was released by Pacer a little before midnight on the West Coast, offering the latest reply written by me, but apparently dictated by Decastro. As Me's style differed from Decastro's, the narrative remained the same as previous Decastro written and filed documents. Me, of course, has the unenviable task of having his name attached to a response that argues in part that the LVMPD's claim that Decastro was convicted of the crimes that he's suing over may be overturned this week on appeal. Of course, one of the main arguments by Decastro's attorney Christopher Oram, who replaced me as attorney on record in the criminal case, is making the appeal of ineffective counsel by me. While Me leaves out the fact that Decastro is essentially calling him a horrible attorney, and it was his own errors that cost Decastro the criminal case, he musters enough to half-heartedly guide Decastro through a challenge against the motion to essentially end the civil case. Half-heartedly, of course, because Me does little to nothing to defend Decastro's points for continuing the lawsuit, in which Decastro is demanding $5 million in compensation. Me regurgitated previous points by Decastro that have been addressed in the past. The main contention, of course, is that the criminal case in Nevada state level court will be overturned on appeal on Wednesday. Me speaks very highly of the possibility of having the convictions in state court overturned and having a massive impact on the federal lawsuit. But it doesn't work that way. Decastro wasn't convicted of crimes when he filed the suit. While the LVMPD mentions, yes, he was convicted of the charges in lower court, most of their arguments do not hinge on the verdict in the case, nor should they. They're separate cases with no impact on each other, as one is federal and the other is on the state level. Me points out that while the defense says that the video evidence proves that Decastro was not struck in the groin, as he did not react to having his genitals patted down, the lack of reaction by Decastro on the video is not proof that it did not happen, implying that Decastro could have been injured with a strike to the groin and just didn't react to it, despite it being so damaging to his body that he needed $5 million in compensation for his injuries. Decastro's supposed ulnar nerve damage is again brought up, claiming that the officers purposely damaged Decastro's ulnar nerve while restraining him as retaliation for his actions during the arrest and, apparently, for filming the police. At no time does Me offer any actual evidence of ulnar nerve damage, continuing the pattern established by Decastro. There's no doctor's notes, no x-rays, no diagnosis of an injury, no records of the supposed surgery Decastro had to have on his hand, just a single receipt from a medical facility that shows he paid for an examination. The rest of the document is a simple regurgitation of Decastro's pending appeal to the lower court. Decastro was supposedly arrested for filming the police. The arrest was invalid because the arresting officer issued an unlawful command. Decastro did comply, even though he didn't comply, and didn't have to comply with the order by the officer to back up, etc., etc. Me is asking the court to deny the motion for summary judgment and grant Decastro the right to update his response to the motion should he be successful in appealing the lower court conviction on July 10, 2024. And more Decastro news, as ordered by Judge H.J. Ford III last month, attorney Steve L. Gablin filed a notice of substitution of attorney in Decastro's lawsuit against Kate Peter, Team Skeptic, Daniel Clement, and Michael Blue Bacon Paratini Cheney in California's Superior Court. The document agreeing to the substitution was signed Jose Decastro by Matt Decastro, who is listed as Jose Decastro's attorney-in-fact. The filing was a procedural move, allowing Gabelin to represent Jose Chile Decastro's legal needs in the case while Decastro is incarcerated in the Clark County Detention Center. Benson scores big in Denver settlement. As Regan Benson announced last week, the Denver City Council voted to approve a total award of $130,000 to her and her husband on Monday to settle multiple civil lawsuits against the city. According to a published account by the Denverite, Benson and husband Brenton were awarded compensation in exchange for dismissing two separate lawsuits against the city, one for retaliation against the Bensons for homeless advocacy, and another for blocking Benson from attending online public citizen advisory board meetings. Correcting our previous coverage, Benson earned only $30,000 for the blockage from the online city advisory board meetings. The lawsuit was seeking Benson's reinstatement to the meetings, which were at one point being held online due to COVID restrictions, and more transparency around the meetings. Benson claimed that she'd been banned from the meetings for allegedly being disruptive and taking an attitude with members of the advisory board. The banning, according to Benson, was in retaliation for her using her First Amendment rights, and indeed saw her awarded $30,000 for her denial of entry to the meetings. The other case saw the Bensons awarded $100,000 for a 2021 incident where the Bensons were pulled over on the side of the road to film an interaction between the police and homeless individuals. Police cited Brenton Benson for blocking a roadway during the incident, which resulted in the suspension of Brenton Benson's driver's license. Brenton Benson continued to drive while his license was suspended and later picked up charges for driving without a license. An internal investigation showed that the arrest was indeed retaliatory, as the Bensons were not parked illegally or blocking the roadway. Officer John Schall, who issued the original citation, was later suspended by the Denver Metro Police Force for 10 days without pay as punishment for his actions in the incident. Benson's most recent live stream, in which she went over the lawsuits and claims in great detail, has been removed from her channel as of press time. While it did not impact the outcome of the lawsuit, it is curious that Benson removed the live stream after being awarded the settlements. In previous statements, Benson has made it clear that she will be conducting further investigations into Officer Schall, as his dismissal from the Denver Metro Police Department is a goal based on his mistreatment of her and her husband. Benson has also promised multiple lawsuits against the city of Denver for supposed retaliatory arrests last year for filming within a police facility. The activist has also apparently threatened the city of Englewood, Colorado, with a civil lawsuit over her recent arrest on charges of harassing a security guard at the Englewood Public Library. This is a developing story. Flashback to July 9th, 2023. Decastro's wild social media Saturday. The world of Jose Chile Decastro was on full display on social media Saturday as he turned to Twitter to express his views on women while providing a plea to YouTube to stop demonetizing marijuana-related videos. The latter first, as Decastro released a short video on YouTube in which observers noted that his pupils were notably smaller than normal and he was rushing his words as he put out a plea to allow monetization of marijuana-related videos. Decastro made the argument that half of Americans actively use marijuana, and that would mean half of the potential advertisers are marijuana users and would want to advertise on videos related to marijuana. According to the latest statistics from the National Center for Drug Abuse, while 45% of Americans have tried marijuana at least once, active users in adults is at 16.9%. Decastro was correct in stating that half of the United States had legalized the recreational use of marijuana, and only 10 states have not decriminalized medical use of marijuana. Marijuana use is still limited to adults. much like alcohol, and YouTube age restricts videos depicting promotion of alcohol and marijuana usage for those reasons. While age-restricted content is available for monetization, the list of advertisers who wish to pursue advertisements on age-restricted content is extremely limited. YouTube will not advertise on videos that instruct or promote illegal activities to children. Turning to Decastro's Twitter, Decastro spent Saturday sharing his thoughts on women in America, and strangely, YouTubers Josh Accountability for All Abrams and Dale Lackluster Hiller. Delete laws. Hashtag feminism has ruined America and American women. The women here have been brainwashed that they don't need a man, and that we all are toxic masculinity. Us men are so dumb and goofy. Lady, you helped create this culture. It's awful dating American women. Delete laws. Without men, the modern world would crumble around women. Women need men to survive on Earth. Period. Delete laws. Spot on. I'm currently planning my trip to South America. It's a total nightmare dating American women. A total nightmare. It's just not worth it. Delete laws. Bruh. Dale doesn't care unless it gets him views or money. Dale, I'm not done with you. When Josh's deposition tapes come out, you, as a journalist, is over. As a YouTube personality or talking head, sure. A journalist, you're not. You're a fraud, at Dale Hiller. Decastro is currently suing Abrams as part of his Massachusetts-based federal copyright lawsuit. The lawsuit has not reached the discovery phase yet, and Decastro has failed to state an actual claim against any of the defendants, including Abrams. GoFundMe, Decastro Wins Big. Jose Chile Decastro had a great day on Tuesday, bringing in $50 in donation to his legal aid fund, Donation Fund, Help People Fund, and crushing its nearest competitor, our own Ongoing Expenses Fund, by a 5-to-1 margin. It was the third win in a row for Decastro, as word is spreading that he will soon be out of jail and back on the streets of Las Vegas, should he decide not to flee from a second case in Las Vegas for obstruction that goes to trial in August. Decastro is currently in the Clark County, Nevada Detention Center on charges of obstructing an officer and interfering in a crime scene. The August case is again for obstruction, as he walked through crime scene tape and got into an altercation with police who were handling a fatal traffic accident. The YouTuber was arrested in that case after refusing to identify himself and leave the scene. It was his second arrest in Las Vegas for obstruction, and while the jurisdiction was different, a conviction would see him possibly land himself right back in the Clark County Detention Center in August, since the two jurisdictions share the same lockup facility. Decastro has pledged a series of lawsuits against Justice of the Peace Ann Zimmerman, who sentenced him to jail earlier this year, and has threatened to file against Zimmerman's bailiffs, guards at the prison, the prosecutor in the case, and others involved in his current sentence. However, he has shown in the past that he will flee from areas when he feels that his life is in danger. This was on display in Ironton, Ohio, where he technically is still a fugitive from justice, as a warrant is still active for his arrest from fleeing from charges in the state. It will be interesting to see if Decastro does flee, if his supporters will continue to send money to fund his possible flight from justice. Two of Decastro's 3 GoFundMe accounts remain inactive, and the third only seems to be receiving donations since it has been semi-promoted on his daily YouTube channel addresses. Decastro is currently scheduled to be released from jail on July 28, 2024, with 1 day removed from his sentence yesterday for apparent good behavior. Decastro himself estimates his release at July 23rd, 24th, or July 25th, 2024. In his most recent video, he promised fire and brimstone, but also a different approach to things, as he said he must establish himself in government, as that is where the power is. What changes to his approach he was talking about remain unclear, but he will need immediate funding for whatever he decides to do, and his GoFundMe campaigns will remain key to paying his massive legal debts as he moves forward. As always, if you'd like to keep us reporting news stories every day, we do have a GoFundMe of our own located in the scroll that's passing now. All proceeds go to keeping the lights on, eating, and writing news stories to feature here and on ReallyCoolSite.org. Decastro appeal hearing today. It was a mix of emotions over the past 2 days for Jose Chile Decastro as he released 2 jailhouse videos to the public promising change, hope, and continuation of vendettas when he is released from jail later this month. Decastro is due in court today for the appeal of charges against him for obstructing an officer and interfering in a traffic stop from a March 2023 arrest. Decastro has been in the Clark County Detention Center since March 2024 and has distributed his jail video addresses every few days after being incarcerated. In the first of 2 videos released on Tuesday, he indicated that he believed he had an ironclad case as one of the 2 laws he was accused of breaking had been heard by the Nevada State Supreme Court and upheld as constitutional. But he claimed that the finding by the Nevada State Supreme Court held that obstruction was a physical act and an intentional one at that. Despite his own comments on his live stream that he staged the March 2023 incident with police in order to sue the LVMPD for millions of dollars, the YouTuber is claiming that he had no intention of interfering or obstructing in the incident. He also stated that he offered no resistance at all during the incident, as he claimed resisting was a physical act and his refusal to comply with the orders of the arresting officer was not considered resisting arrest. Decastro also is now claiming in both videos that Justice of the Peace Ann Zimmerman had previously researched his case, as she had seen videos on his YouTube channel and used his anti-police statements as motivation to unjustly send him to jail as punishment for his free speech. Adding a new twist in the second of the new videos, Decastro now claimed that journalists are now different from regular citizens, as they have special powers and treatment under the law. Apparently, as a self-proclaimed journalist, he now has the ability to enter crime scenes and record, talk back to police, and be allowed special knowledge and rights that the public does not generally have. Decastro is also leaning towards the special power of politics, as he plans to continue his quest for any sort of position in government, stepping away from his sole focus on the governorship of a major state. He said he needed to get his foot in the door to achieve power. The YouTuber promised major changes to the criminal justice system, with constitutional amendments coming that would strip immunity from the police, judges, and presidents. He said he wanted to see Justice of the Peace Ann Zimmerman lose her job based on this and be fined in civil court and be tried and found guilty of the apparent criminal conspiracy to put him in jail. Perhaps hedging his bets on today's appeals hearing, Decastro announced that his criminal attorney, Christopher Oram, has been retained for a possible appeal to the Nevada State Supreme Court, should today's hearings go badly for Decastro. Decastro's appeal hearing is set for 9 a.m. Pacific Time today in Las Vegas. Decastro conviction overturned. Judge Michelle Levitt granted Jose Chile Decastro's appeal today, overturning convictions of obstructing an officer and interfering in a traffic stop, citing First Amendment issues. The judge found that Decastro's conduct was protected by the First Amendment and that Decastro would be freed immediately. Because the interference issue was overturned, the subsequent resisting arrest charge was also dropped. Deputy District Attorney Alexander Chen put up what has been criticized as a half-hearted effort to defend the lower court case. He did not argue defense attorney Christopher Oram's points and essentially conceded multiple points to Oram through his inaction. Judge Levitt seemed to be swayed by evidence that Decastro had indeed backed up multiple feet when told to do so. She showed concern when the arresting officer, Brandon Bork, did not specify how many feet he wanted Decastro to back up. She also seemed concerned that there was no right to privacy in public, as Officer Bork stated that the woman involved in the traffic stop deserved privacy as reasoning for his actions with Decastro. Decastro had indicated that it would take up to 24 hours to be freed from his jail in his earlier jailhouse addresses. In an update to our opinion from earlier articles, including the GoFundMe article from earlier today, we're revising our opinions. It is our feeling that Decastro will now be emboldened by the ruling and will not attempt to leave the Las Vegas area. With a win under his belt, he'll be more apt to stay and fight the charges, again, in our expressed opinion, when he faces separate charges next month in Las Vegas City Court. This is a breaking news story. Josh Abrams, James Freeman take on Mini Putin. YouTubers Josh Abrams and James Freeman are currently in Battle Creek, Michigan, showing their support for YouTuber 68 Shots, who was embroiled in a conflict with a neighbor they have nicknamed Mini Putin. 68 Shots, real name Justin Shots, is engaged in a dispute with a neighbor over access to a small dock on his property. The two have been in conflict over the issue for over a year now, with Shots claiming that the neighbor has influence with the police that has seen multiple charges of disruption and abuse dropped against the neighbor, while Shots has been arrested in retaliation for speaking out. Freeman and Abrams, who are now associated through a loose group of auditors, claim that they are in Battle Creek to support Shots in his continuing altercations with the man. In reality, they found a never-ending source of new videos, as the man is easily provoked by both staged and non-staged incidents, and is the source of content for their channels as police are hesitant to arrest the man. Both YouTubers had versions of the same video from Tuesday. They drove to the man's property and parked outside his home. Police were already on the scene, and Abrams can be heard asking someone off camera if it was all right to park on the easement in front of the property. The property turned out to be owned by the man they call Mini Putin, who began screaming at Abrams to move his truck off of his property. Abrams answered back that they parked on a public easement and had every right to park there. The two exchanged threats, and Abrams assured the man that he was not afraid to become physical with him should he take physical action against Abrams. Both Freeman and Abrams were polite in their interactions with the police on scene, though both had flare-ups screaming at the police that the man's actions were their fault for coddling him and allowing him to act negatively. To some observers, it appeared contrived, as they were manipulating the officers into taking action against the man. After the event wrapped up without arrest, Abrams live-streamed from his hotel room to assure his fans that no arrests had been made and rumors that he and Freeman had been jailed were false. He thanked his fans for buying things off of his baby registry, as he recently announced that his new wife was pregnant with their first child. Abrams wrapped up the live stream quickly after the hotel room phone rang, thanking his fans for their support and promising that he'd be staying with the story for the near future. Benson rages over response to dispatcher investigation. Regan Benson lashed out on her YouTube community page this week after a response to an inquiry about the actions of the Inglewood, Colorado emergency dispatchers was answered in a fashion that she claims shows bias against her. Last month, Benson said she found a homeless man semi-conscious in a convenience store parking lot. She called for an ambulance, but apparently refused to give the dispatcher any information about the homeless man's condition or engage with the dispatchers. The dispatcher sent a police car over to check on the man's condition, who then determined that there was need for medical treatment for the man and summoned the ambulance. Benson claimed that she was treated differently than anyone else, as she is currently in a dispute with the dispatchers after a dispatcher appeared on the Frauditor Troll show when Troll aired a phone conversation between he and a dispatcher. The phone call may have led to the charges being pressed against Benson for filming herself harassing an Allied security guard at the Inglewood Public Library. The YouTuber demanded an immediate inquiry into her alleged mistreatment by the dispatchers in her bi-weekly address to the Inglewood City Council as part of the public's feedback session of the last City Council meeting. One of the City Council members, Rita Russell, followed up with a request for more information on the situation. Benson released the response Russell received during her investigation. The response indicated that the dispatcher did not have enough information from Benson to determine if the man needed medical treatment. Benson refused to share medical information about the situation, and police were dispatched to determine what was going on. Despite Benson's claims that it took a great deal of time for the man to receive treatment, it is noted in the call log that the call happened at 12:34 p.m. Police were dispatched at 12:38 p.m., arriving on scene by 12:40 p.m. They then determined that the man needed medical treatment, and the ambulance arrived on scene at 12:44. Critics of Benson note that while the incident happened, it was also used in Benson's continuing campaign against the city of Inglewood and Police Chief Sam Watson, who recently announced his retirement. Benson allegedly has a history of staging incidents in order to further her goals against the city. Those same critics point out that Benson recently read an email that she previously claimed Kate Peters supporters sent her, threatening her and Christopher Denver Metro Audit's Cordova's lives at an Inglewood City Council meeting. She made an effort to blame the letter on her recent conflicts with the council. The matter was quietly dropped after her actions were mentioned in the press. The response to Russell was authored by Deputy Chief of Police Vance Fender, who presumably will take over from Watson when Watson leaves his position. She called Fender a moron and the next chief idiot in her statement. We will continue to monitor Benson's continued actions against the city of Inglewood. Flashback July 10th, 2023, AFA DMA Harass a Librarian Tour continues. Josh Accountability for All Abrams and Christopher Denver Metro Audit's Cordova's Harass a Librarian Tour continued on Monday as they visited the Whipple Free Library in New Boston, New Hampshire. DMA's live stream started with AFA engaging a police sergeant after a patron had called the police on the pair when the patron felt uncomfortable with the interaction between the two and the library staff members working at the welcome desk. The men questioned why the police responded to the call when the library knew that they were First Amendment auditors and the library staff was trained to handle them through directives from their insurance companies. Abrams made the case that since they knew there was no crime happening, the police should have not responded to the call. Explaining that police were required to come based on the report they had, the police sergeant asked the men to consider the incident from the viewpoint of others and indicated that the library staff had an obligation to protect their patrons. This appeared to have angered both auditors, with DMA stating that the case of Castle Rock versus Gonzalez ruled that police had no obligation to protect anyone. The officer countered that his oath stated that he was obligated to protect the lives of everyone in the state. Upon hearing this, AFA changed tactics and began to claim that the state model of New Hampshire, live free or die, was false since he was not being presented the opportunity to live free. As the police left, both men engaged with library staff, inquiring about a woman they call Scary Mary, who had negatively engaged with them before the police arrived. AFA then called the patron who called the police a traitor to the country and promised he would get the police report and expose the person as a hater of liberty and freedom. When library staff asked both men what platforms the men were airing their live streams on, DMA and AFA refused to answer, stating that they simply forgot which platforms they streamed on. This is the second live stream from the library on the Harass a Librarian Tour, with Abrams promising full videos of the incident to begin airing in the future. GoFundMe, Decastro fails to capitalize on victory. On a day that saw the entire world go into shock over Jose Chile Decastro's victory in a Las Vegas appeals court, our own ongoing expenses fund took the GoFundMe title with a $10 donation. The donation, of course, was part of the continuing conspiracy to keep me writing this column. It really had no bearing on anything else, just a continued vendetta by a supporter who makes sure that the torture continues every day with a single donation to keep me fat and happy. And, of course, to prevent the 7 goose eggs in a row that would be required for me to retire this column. That kind of strangeness and devotion is something apparently missing from the life of Jose Chile Decastro and others as, on perhaps the biggest day of the year for the auditing world, Decastro's huge victory in court establishing brand new guidelines for auditors, no one gives a crap about him enough to throw $5 at him to keep the faith alive. Decastro needs the money, so this should have been a gimme of a victory. His name was out there on every reaction channel on emergency live streams. Michael Eline's vertical stream last night saw Decastro's channel get 161,142 views as of press time to 376 comments and 1,400 likes, yet all that exposure didn't see any money go to his GoFundMe campaigns. Switching gears, expect Decastro's return to continue the pattern of boosts from vertical live streams on his channel. Even Regan Benson's recent live stream saw a dramatic leap in the number of viewers she was able to capture in her most recent streams, as YouTube is now only giving mobile device users on Android the option to vertically live stream from their phones. With the tremendous boost in viewership from the vertical format, it is also possible to vertically live stream from the popular StreamYard software, and Adobe Premiere Pro now supports the format with templates built into the software. As YouTube has committed to the format with most of our viewers using mobile phones while on the go or at work, we will be experimenting with the vertical format starting on Friday's live watch party for the nightly edition of the Auditing Insanity newscast. We will also be experimenting with releasing versions of our news stories as vertical lives starting Saturday, which should begin to show up in the live tab of our YouTube channel. All content in this format will not just be the widestream content squished as other channels do it. We'll be specifically rendering a format that works natively in the vertical format. The vertical streams will also be limited to one host and one guest. Multiple guest lives seem to be horrible experiences in the squished format, so we may experiment with it sometime in the future, but not now, which is why our panel shows and the daily Auditing Insanity newscast will remain in widescreen format, as the content is better suited to that format. We know that there's a lot of negative feedback to the use of vertical streaming. However, the use of the vertical live format for selected content should be a better experience for those on mobile phones, as any content we share in the format will be designed for that experience. And frankly, as a growing channel, the added work is a risk we need to take if we're ever going to get to the point of monetization. If YouTube is crazy enough to double and triple our viewership just by using the format, we'd be dumb if we didn't get into the trend, as we're in major need of expansion. As always, if you'd like to keep us reporting news stories every day, we do have a GoFundMe listed in the scroll that's going by right now. All proceeds go to keeping the lights on, eating, and writing news stories to feature here and on ReallyCoolSite.org. Decastro release. What's next? Jose Chile Decastro's release from a jail on Thursday has left a lot of questions and concerns from the 1A auditing community as reactions continue to the stunning verdict. On Wednesday, Judge Michelle Levitt overturned Decastro's convictions of obstructing an officer and interfering in a traffic stop from his March 2023 arrest in Las Vegas. Judge Levitt said that Decastro had the right to film police on First Amendment grounds as her ruling to overturn the verdict. Levitt apparently was concerned that Decastro was not properly told how far back the arresting officer wanted him to stand. She also threw out the interference charge as the officer let the driver involved in the traffic stop go, which ended the possibility of the interference charge as there was nothing for Decastro to interfere in. Essentially, when the officer let the driver go, there was no more traffic stop, and he couldn't arrest Decastro for interfering in something that no longer happened. Does this mean that Decastro has carte blanche to walk through crime scenes, interrupt arrests, or anything else he has claimed the right to do as his superpowers for being a journalist? No, it does not. All crimes about interference in traffic stops are still in the books. All laws involving the press and access to crime scenes are in effect. Decastro can't be stopped from filming interactions with police and public, but he must abide by the same rules as the normal press in the process. As far as citizen Decastro and everyone else, there must be an active stop, and Decastro and everyone else must clearly be given legal commands and the opportunity to obey the commands before arrest. There are no changes to that. As long as the cops play fair, Decastro and everyone else must play under the same rules. Decastro, from what we can tell, leaves jail deeply in debt. He is more than likely not going to prevail in the ongoing lawsuit against the Las Vegas Metro Police Department, where he's asking for $5 million. The judge in that case has already said that the officer in the March arrest, contrary to Judge Levitt's ruling, had probable cause to arrest Decastro and dismiss the claim with prejudice. The claims in the case are now essentially down to the excessive force claim, which Decastro has yet to show any proof of his injuries or that the LVMPD indeed used excessive force. Getting a payout from the state is improbable at best. That leaves GoFundMe, private donors, super chats, and campaigning for money. In the short term, unless he notes otherwise, he owes for lawyers in his second criminal case set for August, his criminal case in Maryland set for September, his civil case against the LVMP with Michael Mee, the contract he agreed to pay Press with Ranker's lawyer, the contract he agreed to pay with Wanda Meese's lawyer, his lawyer in the civil case against Kate Peter, and the sanctions he owes Michael Blue Bacon Paratini in the same case. Trifold and cop card sales may not be enough to make up the difference. He's going to have to go big with donors and expand his YouTube presence in order to make up for what he owes. As far as retribution, he's already promised multiple lawsuits against everyone involved in the arrest and conviction. He already is suing the LVMPD in federal court. I'd personally expect a state-level lawsuit against them and Officer Bork for false arrest. Malicious prosecution will probably be filed against the prosecutor in the case as well. He's already promised multiple lawsuits against Justice of the Peace Ann Zimmerman and the Clark County Detention Center, and it's just a matter of time before we see him go after them, along with retribution against his enemies on YouTube. But he has to get out first. His first YouTube video, expected for tonight, will set the stage for what is to come and how far he'll need to go to get back on his feet. Giddy up. Karen Read continues media manipulation. Karen Read's legal defense team continued their manipulation of the public on Wednesday as they announced that a fourth juror had come forward to state that the jury had decided that Read was not guilty of second-degree murder, but that the decision was not included in the verdict for the trial. Technically, even if it were true, the case resulted in a hung jury and was not included in the official verdict, so it shouldn't count. However, as the Commonwealth has announced that they'll be retrying Read on all three of the charges, her defense team is pushing for dropping the two charges that they claim the jury acquitted her on. In a media blitz that started with articles on TMZ and Fox News to support their filing, the defense has started a campaign to sway public opinion that Read is somehow experiencing double jeopardy, as she was found innocent on the charges by the jury, though these decisions were not included in the verdict. The defense has also offered no proof or affidavits from the jurors that they claim to have talked to, nor have any of the jurors stepped forward to make the same allegations to the press. However, the word-of-mouth campaign has been apparently carefully constructed to both spread the rumor and taint the juror pool in the upcoming trial. This is because the notion that Read is innocent, because the jury said so, has some power to it. The power was on display during the press conference after Aiden Turtleboy Kearney's latest court hearing for charges that he violated a protection order against an ex-girlfriend on Thursday. Kearney released the following statement on Twitter before the hearing. Just a reminder that today I have court in Dedham District at 9, then across the street at Superior at 2. There's no buffer zone and the courtroom is open to the public. This morning is a hearing about the violation of the restraining order with a fake victim. This afternoon is the 10 witness intimidation felonies with the Proctors and McDalberts. A Rule 17 motion has been filed for the phones, and I expect a spicy bradle today. Hope to see some turtle riders there. Remember, this is only happening to me because of my activism and journalism, exposing corruption in the state police and Norfolk County DA's office. Both Kearney and his attorney Tim Bradel referenced the Karen Read case multiple times during the press conference and said that the protection order was used to hinder his free speech in covering the Karen Read case. The men then addressed the jurors coming forward, with Bradel insisting that the jury be allowed to come forward as a group and render their supposed decision that Read was innocent of second-degree murder. Kearney insisted that his charges of witness intimidation were also hampering his freedom to report on the Karen Read trial. He vowed that he would be found innocent of the charges of witness intimidation, picketing, and conspiracy. Today's hearing for the alleged protective order violation resulted in another continuance. Kearney has a pretrial hearing for the witness intimidation, conspiracy, and picketing charges later this day. Benson verbally assaults internal affairs officer. YouTuber and activist Rean Benson livestreamed from various spots in Inglewood, Colorado Tuesday night as part of her ongoing campaign to monitor Inglewood's police force. Benson returned to Inglewood to continue her patrols and monitoring of the Inglewood police force. Benson claims that the entire force is corrupt, and she has wished that all of the remaining police officials quit when current police chief Sam Watson retires later this summer. In her Tuesday live stream, Benson drove through the city of Inglewood while addressing her live stream, attempting to monitor the comings and goings of police officers. At one point, she stopped to question an officer about a traffic accident. After insulting the officer by stating the infraction he was ticketing the driver for was only an infraction because the officer was on the scene, the officer explained that the driver crossed 3 lanes and hit another vehicle, and it was an infraction regardless of police presence. Benson left the officer to go to the Inglewood Police Department, where she asked her chat if 2 people would step forward to monitor the 2 entrances to the police parking lot. The YouTuber indicated that she would have people stationed at the entrances in apparent 4-hour shifts to monitor the police's use of turn signals and the speed of officers coming out of and going into the lot. This continues Benson's unofficial monitoring of the Inglewood Police Department's use of turn signals, speed, and obeying the rules of the road. This included an incident during the live stream where she said, but did not show on video, a police car tore out of the parking lot, speeding through a parking sign and exceeding the speed limit at high speeds. The live stream then focused on Benson's attempts to get information about an incident where a woman took off her clothes on a city street after encountering Benson, and another incident where an apparent juvenile was tased Monday night in Inglewood. Benson went inside the Inglewood Police Department and filed information requests for information about both incidents. After receiving information about the woman who was disrobed, Benson sat down and became agitated as the officer on the scene described Benson as a self-reported First Amendment auditor in her report. The report claimed that the woman said she was having a panic attack based on the interaction with Benson, and the woman was taken from the scene to avoid the presence of Benson. After the woman was found to have an outstanding warrant, she was taken into custody. Benson claimed that the officer who wrote the report was lying about the incident and demanded both a complaint form and to speak with an internal affairs officer in order to make a complaint about the report. When an internal affairs officer arrived in the lobby, Benson berated the man as he did not follow up on her previous complaint, as he said he was distracted by work after determining that the officer involved in the complaint did not violate police policy. Benson screamed at the man that he was too busy to do his job and should be fired. She then told the man that he needed to bring someone else out to take her complaint because she was no longer interested in interacting with the officer. The officer informed her that there was no one else available to take the complaint, which enraged her further, and she screamed profanities at the man as he wished her a nice day and walked away. A bystander in the lobby made the mistake of stating that Benson was acting inappropriately and could have handled the interaction in a more adult way. This brought a barrage of insults towards the man until the man left the building, Benson following him out, and she ended the broadcast after a lengthy statement on the matter from her car. Flashback to July 11, 2023. Case dismissed. Jose Chile Decastro suffered a massive defeat on Tuesday as his federal copyright infringement lawsuit against Kate Peter, Josh Abrams, 50 John Doe creators, 25 YouTube John Doe workers, and Google YouTube itself was dismissed by Judge Allison D. Burroughs. In a ruling released a little after 1 p.m. on Tuesday, Judge Burroughs granted individual motions to dismiss the case made by Peter, Abrams, and YouTube/Google. In her ruling, Burroughs indicated that Decastro, among other deficiencies, failed to meet the basic requirement of any copyright case, registering a work with the Copyright Office before filing suit. Decastro had claimed that his registration of a single video that had been published on YouTube as part of a broadcast by Kate Peter, but never on his own channel, was enough to meet the requirement for the case against YouTube. The homeless activist argued that since the filing was made between the time the lawsuit was amended to become a copyright infringement case and his actual addition of YouTube in the lawsuit should be allowed to proceed. Even if the point had gone in his favor, the court also found that Decastro, now a trademark of several of his federal lawsuits, failed to actually state a claim against any of the defendants. Judge Burroughs wrote, "Because the court finds that the complaint should be dismissed for failure to comply with the applicable statutory formalities of 411, it need not decide whether plaintiff adequately pled a claim for copyright infringement. In any event, the court notes that the plaintiff's complaints do little more than generally allege that defendants copied his videos. For example, plaintiff does not cite, identify, or describe a single instance of the alleged copying that would allow the court to infer that defendants' copying of the materials was so extensive that it rendered the infringing and copyrighted works substantially similar." The case originated as a defamation and harassment lawsuit last fall, as Decastro alleged that Peter and Abrams had violated and abused and defamed him in a series of incidents during the summer and fall of 2022. Decastro dropped the defamation and harassment charges, later to refile a similar lawsuit against Peter in California State Superior Court in November of 2022. Decastro's pivot apparently was in order to fulfill his belief that YouTube would accept a general federal lawsuit against a number of John Doe defendants as a substitute for individual lawsuits against YouTube creators who he felt had unfairly used his original material. He continues to assert this belief to this day and has used it as a means to have YouTube temporarily suspend channels from such creators as Irish Demon, Team Skeptic, and Dogtective. It is unclear as to the future of Decastro's multiple YouTube channels, as Decastro has issued hundreds of false copyright strikes against creators since December, openly abusing YouTube's copyright system and allegedly avoiding punishment for his actions due to his ongoing lawsuit against Google/YouTube. Decastro had some measure of relief on Tuesday, as the judge also dismissed counterclaims made by Peter and Abrams. The judge ruling, "The court finds that neither Abrams nor Peter have established that it is not a legal certainty that the claim involves less than $75,000. See Anderson 57F 4th at 15-16. Because Abrams and Peter have failed to plead sufficient facts to establish that the court has subject matter jurisdiction, the claims must be dismissed." GoFundMe, Decastro return does not spark market. Jose Chile Decastro's release from the Clark County, Nevada Detention Center did not revive the market, as again, only our ongoing expenses fund saw gains on Thursday with a donation of $10. A correction before we go further, yesterday's graphic that we presented with the report was wrong, showing gains of $20 instead of $10 to our fund. It was a simple typo and did not impact our overall hijacking of the column, but needs to be corrected for those who actually follow our financial reporting. Financial followers ready? Okay, let's start again with the bad news. The long-anticipated return of Jose Chile Decastro flopped, and flopped hard on Thursday. There were no gains in any of the auditing-related campaigns we follow, including Decastro's 3 active campaigns. The financial reporter in us, yes, stop laughing at that designation, notes that this was expected based on Decastro's decisions once he got out of jail. Despite the incredible performance of Michael Eline's vertical stream the other night, with 165,000 viewers and still climbing, Decastro only released a day-old video, a short featuring recycled footage, and a community post to indicate that he was indeed out of jail. No lives, no current footage, no verbal statement, no promotion of his financial distress or his crowdfunding campaigns. Nothing at all to take advantage of the actual outpouring of interest in his release. In this climate, day one is the day for donations and the day for the outpouring of interest in the case. Day 2 or 3 might pop big numbers, but we're already seeing interest fading as the old Decastro hasn't returned, and fans looking for a live statement and to open their pocketbooks to the cause are already spending that money elsewhere. It was a mistake not to go live and a mistake not to promote his crowdfunding campaigns. He's desperately in need of an influx of funding, and a day one pop from those viewers who hate the police and want to punish the system that wrongfully incarcerated Decastro would have brought huge numbers of views and donations. We'll go into his vain reasoning in another column, but for now it was a financial mistake to skip a day one statement of some sort. He still will get a big pop of numbers when he does go live, but not on the level he would have had if he had gone live the first day. As Decastro goes, so does the market. With nothing to spark the market and bring interest to the campaigns of everyone else, there's not much for me to talk about. Even Decastro's recent gains with 3 wins in a row, showing that there is life out there, have ended with 2 days of no donations or even passing interest in his fundraising efforts. You can't catch donors without promoting your URLs and doing some basic pitching of your products. He knows this. He was an ad executive for dozens of hundreds of Santa Claus years in New York City. Not striking when the iron was hot was a mistake, and it's unclear what the market will do now without his return to propel the industry. As always, if you'd like us to keep reporting new stories every day, we do have a GoFundMe of our own. All proceeds go to keep the lights on, eating, and writing new stories to feature here and on ReallyCoolSite.org. Please note, for those who follow our animal support campaign for feral cats and domestic cats on the property, we're in flea season again. We're asking for help with obtaining donations of Cheristin for cats. It's the only treatment we've tried that works with the breed of fleas up here, but it's expensive. It doubles as a once-a-month antihistamine treatment for one of the older cats with ongoing respiratory problems, so even outside of flea season, we need access to it. If you can help, please visit our Amazon registry page. Links will be posted on our Discord server. We're also looking for help for paying our Pacer bill, which is coming up next month. Due to inactivity in a lot of cases we follow, it won't be as expensive as last quarter, where it was over $200, but it is an added cost of reporting and something we still do need help with. This channel is inching towards level 1 monetization, and we're doing our darndest to do what the auditors haven't done and capitalize on the real interest in Decastro's return and other big events to make the move forward, to hopefully be able to sustain ourselves. Thank you to all of you for your support, especially our mad hate donor who makes sure that this article is produced every day. We're getting there. If we fail and we have to go back to a real job in the real world, we will, but we won't fail without a fight. Hendry confronts South Whitley City Council. YouTuber Craig Hendry's latest video is making headlines as he confronted the City Council after the South Whitley Police Department archived its Facebook page following outrage over the handling of the case of Vivian Augustus. According to a report by WBOI News Morning Edition's Rebecca Green, South Whitley police officer Brian Schimmel was fired from the police force in April following the release of a video from a January traffic stop. In that video, he pulled over Augustus. The officer is seen reaching into the car and unbuckling Augustus's seatbelt and pulling her out of the car with force and throwing the teenager to the ground. Augustus was charged with speeding and refusing to provide her driver's license to the officer. The decision to drop the charges against Augustus was announced on the same day as Schimmel was released from the police force. The civil rights attorney channel on YouTube covered the case, which brought major increases to the traffic of the South Whitley Police Department's Facebook page, resulting in the page being shut down. Hendry addressed the 3 city council members that were present at the meeting and demanded to know why there was an initial statement from the council that the officer did not commit a fireable offense. The city attorney explained that the statement was truthful, as under Indiana law, the officer did nothing wrong, and the city attorney advised the city council not to provide a comment to Hendry. The YouTuber got a statement from City Council member Brock Watterson, who said that he did not agree with the law and the training that the police were receiving out of the academy. Watterson directed Hendry to the state legislature to change the law that initially prevented Schimmel from being fired from the police force. Henry's summation was that the City Council was allowing the state to prevent them from taking action where needed, and they needed to do more to stand up in order to do what was right in future cases. The return of Jose Chile Decastro. Fans of Jose Chile Decastro were left in the lurch as the expected live stream following his release from jail did not materialize on Thursday, as the YouTuber gave in to vanity and personal time instead of making a public appearance to ease the needs of his hundreds of thousands of followers. Thursday started with the release of Decastro's address to his fans from August 10, 2024, following his exoneration in the appeals court of charges of interfering in a traffic stop and obstructing an officer. Decastro claimed in the address that with the overturning of the convictions, his record is now clear, and he has never been convicted of a criminal act. Anyone doing a records request of his background can easily dispute that, but Decastro continued the claim that he has no criminal record throughout the statement. He also claimed it would take a couple of days to return to live streaming. His later statement would make it clear he needs to get a haircut, do some workouts, and have his front tooth, which was apparently broken while in jail, fixed before he could return to on-camera work. He promised swift retribution to his enemies through the legal system, and then surprised most viewers by apologizing to the bailiff that he called a pig. He said he shamed his family and friends by calling the man a name and regretted his actions on that day. The YouTuber also made it clear that he still felt that the comment and his actions were the sole reason he was unfairly incarcerated in the Las Vegas detention center and would be filing suit against all involved to punish them for his unlawful detention. Decastro released a short later in the day indicating that he had not yet been released, followed by a statement on his community page.
Yes, I'm out of the dungeon. I'm free. The sun is on my face as my young nephews are crawling on back as we splash and play in the pool. Then I have a bite of pizza, a little yogurt, and chomp on some fresh fruit. The kids have to go to wrestling practice, so I jump in my car to get my phone fixed and go buy some kombucha. As I'm waiting in for the service, I'm reading all your comments, and I'm overwhelmed with emotion, gratitude, and proud of all of you. You are seeing it correctly. I feel empowered, strong, and ready to extract the justice that must be served to that despotic, biased judge, the lying prosecutor, and JBTP, who was so sure he was gonna get away with this. We will hold them all accountable, all of them. Being released after 114 days in a dungeon is a strange shock for me. I'm a bit disoriented. I can't remember some of my passwords. My body weight composition is wicked off. I'm going through a release freedom shock that I can't describe. You all have given and done so much for me while I was caged. Forgive me for needing a couple days to get reoriented. Truly, I need 3 gym sessions, a hair fade, this tooth fixed, Charlie time, and to decompress. The pressure I've been under has been something I'll try to describe when we meet up. I'll set a live stream in the next 48 hours. Thank you for being here and supporting me. I have a few special thanks for a few I'll talk about on our reunion. We must get justice. The only thing that will do is justice. We won't stop, and we don't stop. Thank you, Chile.
We will continue to monitor Decastro's channels for updates as they happen. Turtle Boy's mild day in court. It was a mild day in court for Aidan Turtleboy Kearney on Thursday as his promised fire and brimstone turned into little more than smoke and sparklers as his two court hearings turned into much ado about nothing. Kearney's first hearing of the day involved ongoing charges that he violated a protective order that his ex-girlfriend Lindsay Gaetini has against him. He was accused of violating the order a few months ago when Gaetini was the guest of Jen McCabe at a hearing in the Karen Reed murder trial, and Kearney was forced to leave the hearing due to Gaetini's arrival. Kearney hung around the area, hiding in what he described as a grassy knoll, to allegedly shout at Gaetini and take pictures of her while allegedly violating the protection order. Tuesday's hearing, a pre-trial conference, did not happen and was rescheduled for August 22nd at 9 a.m. It is listed as discovery compliance and jury selection on the docket. Kearney's afternoon hearing provided more excitement for his fans as the Journalism Jesus saw the hearing restreamed on Tom CPU's channel by a fan of Kearney's, in clear violation of the Zoom meeting's guidelines of no recording of the hearing. The second hearing resulted in another continuance until August 29, 2024 at 2 p.m., with the expectation that the Commonwealth will provide a reply to the question of if they were opposed to providing copies of the data from Kearney's seized phones and computer by August 1st, 2024. The Commonwealth was also given until August 8th to file their motion for the authorization of a taint team to go through Kearney's devices and determine what information is privileged and what information the Commonwealth can have access to. An agreement on the taint team was previously reached between Kearney's attorney and Special Prosecutor Ken Mello. Mello's ongoing illness has seen him at least temporarily replaced by Special Prosecutor Robert Cosgrove, who is picking up the work that Mello had left incomplete in the case. Kearney's attorney Tim Bradel alleged that the witness intimidation charges against his client were unjust, as any action Kearney has alleged to have done have been in the role of a journalist. Bradel claimed that journalists must act tough around subjects they're investigating to get to the truth and use tactics that might be obnoxious or offensive as part of their jobs. When questioned by Bradel as to why Kearney was facing charges, Cosgrove brought up an example of many with an incident that was reported to the grand jury where, in his role as a journalist, Kearney went to a sporting event of a child of a witness in the Karen Reed murder case. Kearney had a separate person filming the witness and accused the witness of being involved in the murder of Boston police officer John O'Keefe. Kearney demanded the witness change his testimony and began screaming that the person was a murderer in front of the crowd. Kearney then insulted and degraded the witness on his Turtleboy Live YouTube program following the encounter. Despite Bradel's outrage, the case will continue in August. Kearney's post-hearing activities were apparently interrupted by Masshole Troll Mafia leader Kate Peter. The YouTuber is alleged to have violated protection orders against her held by both Kearney and ex-girlfriend Lauren Murray as Peter was stopped in her car at a light outside of the courthouse. Responding to jeers from the crowd assembled to support Kearney, Peter flipped off the crowd for 90 seconds and drove off when the light changed to green. General outrage and child abuse accusations against Peter followed. Kearney claimed that Peter will be charged with violating Murray's protective order in Stoughton District Court. No charges have appeared as of press time. Flashback July 12, 2023. Decastro loses. Does anything change? A little over a year ago, Kate Peter stood up to Jose Chili Decastro on a parade ground in front of small children and humiliated him, and he got angry. That's all what this was about. Over a year, thousands of hours in YouTube time, millions of words typed defending both sides, nearly 80 grand of community money invested in one side or the other, hundreds of threats, bad actions, and overall bullshittery by everyone involved, and we have a decision. Jose Chili Decastro failed in his attempts to silence Kate Peter out of revenge for the activities on Memorial Day 2022. This case was never about the money. While Decastro is rapidly aging, homeless, and deluding himself into thinking he has a political future, the possible financial windfall brought by defeating Peter and one of the world's biggest tech companies in court could have set him up financially for the rest of his life, but he never seemed to be in it to win it. With a little effort and hiring of a legal team that actually knew what it was doing, Decastro really could have pulled off something that would have changed the world. YouTube's copyright system is irreparably broken, with 51 million channels and sometimes rampant abuse of both the blatant stealing of content and the misuse of the copyright system to punish others and silence speech, including by Decastro himself. Decastro's case might have brought real change to the platform. But in the opinion of almost everyone but the most hardened Chile Decastro supporter, he didn't want that. He wanted the ability to silence his critics with the ongoing punishment of Kate Peter and anyone else who would dare speak up against him at the center of his universe. He offered no allegations of wrongdoing, leaving his copyright complaint as a list of URLs that supposedly someone somewhere violated his copyright. His arguments were a mix of babblings of a constitutional law scholar, whatever that means, ChatGPT, several small houses worth of and other stimulants, and a 5-year-old saying, "I know you are, but what am I?" His stated goal was to drain Peter and the others for the rest of their lives with his lawsuits, pledging that he wouldn't give up on Peter until the end of his life. At times he sounded more like an obsessed former lover than a man with a serious constitutional question about YouTube's policies or Peter's alleged bad behavior. Even more recently, as he battled Peter and others in federal court in Massachusetts and on the state level in California, reviving his original charges of harassment and defamation in a lawsuit alleging a vast conspiracy against him, and asking the court to permanently silence Peter on the internet, his literal half-assing of court documents seem to indicate that he has no actual plan to win his court cases. To observers, it seems like he is sticking to his plan to tie up his critics in court for the rest of his life and drain them until the court throws the case out, and then he just refiles it in another state, rinse and repeat until someone dies first. While he has added court cases against the police in Ohio and Las Vegas to his resume of future dismissed cases, and he has announced political ambitions based on his massively growing YouTube channel that's not suspicious at all in the frequency of new viewers versus the actual non-existent activity of said viewers, he has no plans to win the cases or political office. They are mere props, according to observers, in his overall goal to silence his critics. Expect no victory dances. Expect no long-winded victory speeches. Expect no apologies. Expect nothing more than the same. The loss in court on Tuesday means nothing, especially if you believe Decastro's stated goal. He will regroup, he will appeal, he will refile if needed. He won't accept the loss. Like a bad mix of Dracula, Wile E. Coyote, and a chocolate-flavored Axe body spray wearing Dude Bro from 2006 hitting on a cashier at Hot Topic, he will be back. Oh yes, he will be back. But will he still be relevant on the 2nd, 3rd, 5th, or 10th time he trots out the same tired antics in court? We shall see. GoFundMe Decastro campaign goes backwards? Friday's GoFundMe crowd went to our own ongoing expenses fund with $30 in donations and was again the only fund to see donations or any activity other than one of Jose Chile Decastro's campaigns that went backwards. That's right, folks, for maybe the second time since we've been following these things, a fund declined from the previous day by a significant margin. Jose Chile Decastro's Legal Aid Fund, Donation Fund, Help People Fund fell from $26,950 yesterday to $26,850 today, with an observed loss of $100. Thinking that this was a mistake on our part, we went back to the history of the campaign and confirmed that the last donation was from an anonymous source 4 days ago for $50, along with a donation 5 days ago for $25, a donation 7 days ago for $10, and a donation of $5 14 days ago before hitting a $100 donation 15 days ago. The build-up from one to the other was natural, so it wasn't something transposed in our data, like a recent screw-up in our own fund the other day, leaving us to believe that the $100 was either charged back or declined in processing. Why it took so long for this person or the card company to act is a mystery at this point. Examining the record, the person with the $100 donation has donated at least twice before to the fund for the same amount without a chargeback. Their action will be left as a mystery. But again, day 2 of Decastro's freedom and his crowdfunding is going backwards. It's a sign that his refusal to address his fans may have been a mistake. Decastro has scheduled his triumphant live stream for Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. In response to Decastro's freedom, former partner Colin Project Constitution Campbell has pulled all of his YouTube content featuring the videos he made during his time working with Decastro. Campbell explained in a post on Kate Peters' Discord that he was removing the content as he is aware of the rumors that Decastro was going to strike anyone using his content while the YouTuber was unjustly locked up in the Clark County Detention Center. Decastro's former partner admitted no wrongdoing, as he's using videos he produced in the partnership with Decastro on his channel, but did not want to risk losing his channel due to Decastro's penchant for falsely striking channels in the past. Previous channels reportedly briefly taken down by Decastro's actions included Dog Detective, Uncle Artie, and Irish Demon's main channel. While the YouTube channels were returned upon appeal, Campbell said he did not want to risk losing his YouTube presence at this time. Campbell's TikTok and other social media channels remain up without alteration. If you'd like to keep our new YouTube channel stay up and keep us reporting news stories every day, we do have our own GoFundMe. All proceeds go to keeping the lights on, eating, and writing new stories to feature here and on ReallyCoolSite.org. Glenn Serio sues Tella Klein for $10,000. Sharon Tella Klein announced on her YouTube channel on Saturday that she is being sued by First Amendment auditor Glenn Serio in Linwood, Washington's Small Claims Court. Serio claims the following in his Small Claims Court filing. On June 22, 2024, Sharon E. Klein received transmitted very sensitive information on her YouTube channel, Tella Klein, with the intent to harm, intentionally disclosing it to the public, all my very private information, name, birth date, social security number, committing the crime of identity theft 9A 20 RCW, taking with malicious intent to harm me financially with the scheme to commit fraud and attempting to gain access. Screenshots included in the lawsuit showed that Klein posted a copy of the 2019 bulletin about Serio posted publicly by the Everett, Washington Police Department. Klein also had reposted a video of Serio's that featured information about lawsuits against specific officers in Everett that Serio was suing. Both Klein and Serio's copy of the video were removed from YouTube on grounds of harassment. Serio later reposted that video with the private information removed. Klein told her fans not to approach or steal Serio's identity based on information she may have disseminated about Serio, and says she does attempt to redact anything confidential when posting information about Serio, which was reflected in screenshots Serio included in the lawsuit. Serio is seeking $10,000, and the court date is scheduled for a Zoom call on September 24, 2024, at 9 a.m. local time. Klein has requested help from the public on finding grounds to countersue Serio. Turtle Boy says his motions were granted. Turtle Boy Aiden Kearney went on a Twitter blitz leading into the weekend with a number of announcements regarding his ongoing charges of witness intimidation, picketing, and conspiracy. At Thursday's hearing for the charges, Kearney's attorney Tim Bradle demanded phone records from Lindsay Gaiatini's phone regarding an incident where Kearney claims Gaiatini destroyed evidence of conversations between her, Special Assistant District Attorney for the case Kenneth Mello, and Brian Tully, a Massachusetts state trooper. The incident is alleged to have happened on December 23, 2023. Kearney had come over to Gaiatini's house to confront her about her involvement in grand jury hearings about his felony witness intimidation and other charges. During the visit, it is alleged that Gaiatini locked herself in her bathroom and called or texted Mello, telling him not to contact her until further notice, as Kearney was attempting to go through her phone. She is also alleged to have a conversation with Tully, who was told the same thing. Gaiatini then allegedly deleted text messages and call records from both men, so Kearney could not find them. Kearney alleges that Gaiatini had conspired with Tully and Mello to invite him over to her home for Gaiatini to then file false charges of assault against him. The false charges would then violate his release conditions from the witness intimidation charges and see his bond revoked. An incident between Gaiatini and Kearney did happen that night. Gaiatini did press charges against Kearney, and Kearney's bail was revoked. He spent the holidays in jail for violating his bond, and on the day of his release, police declined to prosecute him for the alleged assault of Gaiatini. Bradel claimed he needed several months' worth of phone records from Verizon from the time period, as he did not trust the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to provide him with information based on their alleged mishandling of information in the recent Karen Read murder trial. Both the Commonwealth and Gaiatini's lawyer objected to the request due to privacy issues and due to the fear that Kearney would release information from the phone that was non-related to the case on his weekly YouTube live streams. The judge in the case ruled that Bradel would be provided records from December 23, 2023 at 12 a.m. Eastern Time to December 24, 2024 at 12 a.m. Eastern Time by Verizon Wireless within 30 days of being subpoenaed by the clerk of the court. Bradel was ordered against copying the records or disclosing or disseminating the contents to anyone else, including Kearney, subject to further order by the court. The judge also ruled that the Commonwealth needed to provide a revised bill of particulars to the defense by Friday, August 1, 2024. This was in response to a defense motion on Thursday that the bill of particulars given to them by Ken Mello insufficiently detailed the nature and character of crimes charged against Kearney. Kearney released the following statement to Twitter in response to the motions and in regard to Mello's replacement, Special Prosecutor Robert Cosgrove. Robert Cosgrove is a 72-year-old retired judge making over $200,000 a year in his pension. He could have just retired to the Cape and lived large, but instead he wanted to suck off the taxpayers some more and declare war on the First Amendment by taking over Ken Mello's sham prosecution of an award-winning journalist. Flashback to July 13, 2023, Decastro ignores case dismissal. An unusually quiet Jose Chile Decastro livestreamed Wednesday night and made no mention of his devastating court loss to Kate Peter, Josh Abrams, various John Doe defendants, and YouTube Google itself. Decastro had apparently instructed his moderators to crack down on mentions of the events surrounding the dismissal of his federal copyright lawsuit, with moderators removing and timing out anyone who inquired about the case or posed direct questions about what happens next to Decastro. The YouTuber, while unusually silent while watching videos of negative interactions between police and citizens, did not take the bait from multiple sock accounts such as Judge Allison Burroughs and Allie B from the Bronx, who got around the restrictions of his moderators by sending super chat donations. Warming up in the second of the 2-hour live stream, Decastro claimed that his family was Colombian and dealt drugs in the United States as it was their only means to make a living when they arrived in the country. Decastro failed to mention his multiple planned fundraisers, including efforts for Deborah Rogers and a disabled fan, but pledged to crowdfund fines for the Follow the John YouTube channel after featuring a video from the channel in which the channel owner received a parking ticket, ending his live stream with a pledge to use his fans' money to cover anything the channel owner needed in relation to the police interaction. Viewership for Decastro's event peaked at an observed 210 live viewers, and total views for the video stands at approximately 1,600 as of press time.